everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of Seed Speaks. My name is Alex Martin, and I serve as the editor of Seed World magazine. And today I'm absolutely thrilled to be your host. Today, we're going to be joined by three panelists to talk about a rather polarizing subject: GMOs and organic agriculture. We're going to take a deep dive into the history behind GMOs, as well as learn about consumer drivers and what makes organic agriculture so appealing to consumers. By the end of this conversation, if we've learned one thing, it'll be there's not a one size fit all approach to agriculture. But before we get started and talk to our panelists, I want to let you can find us on Seed World Group's YouTube channel and Seed World Group's Facebook page. But also now you can find us on the Genetic Literacy Project's website. They'll be sharing Seed Speaks each week as we continue to dive deep into science under fire. But with that, let's meet our panelists today. So joining us live today is Jon Entine, the executive director of the Genetic Literacy Project, and Mac Ehrhardt, president of Albert Lea Seeds, an organic seed supplier. But before we sit down and chat with Jon and Mac, our third guest, Dr. Robb Fraley, former chief technology officer of Monsanto, unexpectedly couldn't join us today live, which is really unfortunate, but we were able to catch him yesterday and pre-record some information for you. So let's go ahead and take a look at that video. What would maybe be your elevator pitch to someone who's a little hesitant on GMOs or just new breeding techniques in general? I mean, nowadays we have gene editing that is also coming into question as well. So what's your recommendation for communication?
Oh, I think, well, in terms of the format, I think, that's certainly another, change that occurred. I mean, back in the in the time frame when these products were first being launched, people, wrote about patents and publications and regulatory documents.
Mm-hmm.
The world shifted with digital communication, and the communication, clearly today, the last statistic I saw said that, people get 80% of their information from social media and the internet. And so, it's real simple. If you're not communicating on social media, you're not reaching people. So, the format is key. Clearly that means that, we can't have a lot of complexity, and it has to be a direct, effective, and often a emotional connection with people. And so that's key. I think the other thing is the need to really amplify those messages. All too often you see every company doing their own communication, or every university or every startup. There's a real need to amplify that message and support the general communication on the benefits of new technologies for food production and for enhancing the environment. So looking for ways to to support a variety of messages and amplify them so that they're effective with the consumer. I think, and then, kind of dissecting that a little bit more, what I think is key is to connect with consumers in two areas. One, to really understand what they're most passionate about, and second, trying to find that personal connection. To make it real. So on the passion side, one of the things we learned several years ago, I used to start every speech talking about a growing world population and food security and food affordability and those types of things. But, for a lot of consumers, what really draws their attention is the environment. And how we can use new tools to farm better, farm smarter, use less inputs, produce more food more effectively, with less inputs. And I think that environmental message, really is a key one. And the facts are almost everything we've done, whether it's gene editing, biotechnology, or advanced breeding, allows us to produce crops and food more effectively, more safely, with less inputs. And so it's just, historically, it's not been the theme, but one of the things you see today is that message is being enhanced.
Mm-hmm.
I think then in terms of the personal connection, that varies. I mean, I think, people are really comfortable with the biotechnology advances in human healthcare. The use of a human insulin or a, a monoclonal antibody that can address cancer or some other diseases. It's an interesting test these days, with, the advanced biotechnology that's been used to produce the COVID vaccines. And, it's also clearly shows the power of the science and the benefit, but I think it also shows that this concern and the acceptance of people broadly to use vaccines, illustrates the need that all of us need to focus on communicating the benefits of science, whether it's to produce a new vaccine or to farm and produce food in a better, safer, and more environmentally friendly fashion. So it really points to the fact that the challenge on science communication is key, and
Yeah.
it's really one of the things that we need to address, and because we're entering this golden age of biology. I mean, the ability to understand every single gene, to be able to modify every base pair in a plant, in livestock, in microbes in the soil, has enormous implications for improving the production and sustainability of farming. So it's really an obligation of everybody, who's involved in the science, in the food industry, in the agricultural industry, to bridge that gap.
No, I think you're totally right. And I think now other industries, especially like you mentioned, the pharmaceutical industry, are seeing that sometimes there can be hesitancy in more than just food. We're seeing that right now. I think with the COVID vaccine as well, there's a lot of hesitancy
Yeah,
behind that.
there
So
is, and I think it really points to, I mean, some of the challenges that we've all seen is, being able to have a clear message on the benefit, having the right, distribution and amplification of that message,
right.
and there's been some successes and frankly some challenges, and you know, I like I said, I start with the basic principle that you have to have great science to make a great product, whether it's a new crop or a new life-saving vaccine. But it also, you have to put the effort into that communication from the very beginning.
Fantastic. Well, then last question for you today, Rob. How can conventional production and organic farming practices kind of live in the same world together, but in a less combative way? I feel like lately they've been pitted against each other. So both are kind of here to stay. Do they need to be so polarized?
No, I don't think so. And I think we're starting to see uh, opportunities for that connectivity. I mean, I've talked to a lot of farmers who, on one side of their farm, they're a conventional farmer, and another part of their farm, they're meeting a market need through organic production. I think some of the common grounds that bring them together. So first of all, I always like to start with the point that I think the real strength of U.S. agriculture is that we have a lot of diverse production systems and a lot of diverse crops. One of the things that I think we should celebrate as a real success is, for the most part, during the entire experience with COVID, we had ample food supply in this country. And I think we need to celebrate the importance of a strong domestic production system. There were clearly challenges and there were stresses in terms of the pipeline and some of the challenges. But for the most part, I think it really showed the resilience and the importance of strong domestic production. So that's one aspect. And I think we need to celebrate the fact that we have conventional, we have organic, we have different approaches and different crops to meet that need. I think some of the common ground areas are, there's a lot of interest in both conventional agriculture and organic to have a better understanding of soil health and
Mhm.
microbial inoculums and seed treatments are common ground. The use of digital agriculture benefits a conventional farmer and an organic farmer. I think one of the interesting tests is going to be gene editing, because gene editing doesn't have the uh, the aspect of introducing a new gene as you do with the GMO, but really the natural improvement of a crop, you know, through a base pair change, a mutation that could occur naturally. And I think that could be a bridge point to really consider, how these advanced biology tools, and of course, just advanced breeding techniques. I mean, today's breeder is making the decisions on which crosses to make, based on a detailed knowledge of the genome and the attributes of the different parental lines, and then using markers and tools to select those rare combinations that create an advantaged product, whether it's higher yield, better sustainability in production, or better pest or disease tolerance. And those are benefits that benefit both an organic production system and a conventional. So I see opportunities for the world to come together. It would be it would be a real loss if the organic farming industry didn't take advantage of the advanced computational capabilities in digital ag, the advanced breeding techniques that allow us to produce more with less. So I think at some point we'll see that merging of technologies that can benefit all farmers around the world.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again to Rob for joining us pre-recorded. But now let's get on to our live guests. So I'd like to give each of you just 1 minute to give us a little bit of insight into yourself. So Jon, 1 minute introduction, if you would.
Thank you. I'm a longtime journalist, originally in network television for Tom Brokaw and NBC and ABC News, but started writing about sustainability in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Actually coined the term greenwashing as it's now used, and very involved in the socially responsible investment movement, and started writing about genetics, and specifically about genetics in agriculture, and also the use of chemicals in agriculture. I've written 7 books, a number of them on ag-related issues, and in 2011 launched the Genetic Literacy Project, which looks at the issues that Rob was just talking about, the impact of biotechnology and genetics on both biomedicine and in agriculture. So our focus now in the ag area is on sustainable agriculture. I think that there's, as Rob said, and I think our other guests will underscore this, there's a lot of the goals of using conventional and organic agriculture are the same. Let's see if we can turn down the heat and find out where we can build these sustainability bridges.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jon. Mac, 1 minute introduction would be great, please. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Alex. And thanks for the opportunity to speak today about the organic side of the seed business, which is still a small business relative to agriculture as a whole, but continues to rapidly grow. So I grew up in a family seed business here in southern Minnesota. Our company is Albert Lea Seeds. My grandfather started this business in 1923. My dad ran it, and after I went off to college and had a couple of other jobs, I've been here for the last 30 years. So we're a small company, about 45 year-round employees, and we distribute seed to farmers and dealers from the Dakotas to Maine. We have a diverse business selling all kinds of field crop seed, and we were actually licensed by Monsanto and other trade companies to sell traded seed for 20 years or so. Back in 2017, as a company, we decided to switch our focus and focus 100% on the fastest growing part of our business, which was the organic seed business. So at that point, we exited the traded seed, or GMO business, as it's sometimes called. And we now figure about half the seed we sell ends up on a certified organic farm. And the rest of the seed that we sell is by default non-GMO, because it's things like oats, wheat, barley, clover seed, cover crops, and things like that.
Perfect. Well, I'm so excited to get to chat with you, because I think we've got a nice little group here of overarching things to talk about. So Jon, to kick you off with our questions, you just gave us a great rundown of the Genetic Literacy Project and how you're responding to kind of misinformation spread. So I wanted to ask, what are your common concerns or misconceptions when talking about these things to consumers? And by consumers, I kind of want to look at those average grocery shoppers that you might see day to day in the grocery store.
I think consumers are concerned about the environment, and they're concerned about health. And unfortunately, the issues of agriculture have become very polarized, much like the rest of our society. I think the organic movement, which has been absolutely essential to reforming many, I think, outdated and unsustainable practices in agriculture, has also become a lifestyle and an advocacy area. And unfortunately, a lot of the proponents of it, I don't think my colleague here today falls into this category, have demonized conventional agriculture, particularly genetically modified crops, and now a new generation of gene-edited crops. Our first one just came out in the last week or so in Japan, heralding a new generation of biotechnology engineered agricultural products. I think that there's unfortunately a lot of misconceptions. The biggest one is that somehow organic food and organic crops are more sustainable than conventional food. That's absolutely not the same. If anything, on the sustainability measure, conventional crops and GMOs are much more sustainable from a climate change perspective. What organics focuses on is soil preservation, which is a slice of sustainability, but not the whole picture. And again, we've learned a lot from that. But I think it's time to take a bigger picture than the polarized discussion has evolved over the past 2 decades. And we at the Genetic Literacy Project, we're promoting through education and fighting against disinformation, we're promoting dialogue. How do we get from here to there? And our guiding principle in the ag area is sustainability. And whatever tools we can use in the organic sector, we should use them. Whatever tools we can pull from the more conventional side, which is more open to biotechnology, let's use them as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jon. Mac, you kind of get our unique position today of being the non-GMO organic seed company. So you kind of briefly mentioned that you saw organic seed being kind of one of your bigger sellers. So I kind of wanted to ask, how did that happen, and what's kind of the market potential and marketing differences between non-GMO and that organic seed?
Yeah, thanks again, Alex. So, and thanks for making the distinction between organic agriculture, which is a regulated label by the USDA, and non-GMO food or non-GMO ag, which is not a government regulated label. It's just a self-regulated label. So I'm mostly going to talk about organic ag and the organic seed business because I spend most of my time there, and I'm a little more comfortable talking about the issues that face it. And I will talk a little about the non-GMO side as well, right? So my company got certified organic back in 1996, which predated the National Organic Program, because frankly, some of our farm customers were asking us to do certified organic processing for them. And it just kind of grew from there. We sold our first organic seed in 1998. We had exactly one customer that first year for organic seed. But now, as I said, it makes up roughly half of our business. I think our company fit in well with organic farming because we've always carried a very diverse line of field seeds, including small grains, clovers, cover crops. And organic farmers need those seeds as part of their diverse rotations because most organic farmers have a 3 or 4 year rotation. In terms of market potential, so I'm going to talk more about organic as a whole rather than the organic seed business right now. But in terms of market potential, a couple of facts about organic ag in the US. According to Mercaris, which is an organic and non-GMO trading platform and information service, there'll be around 9.3 million harvested organic acres in 2021 in the United States. And that represents only about 1% of the harvested acres in the United States. So a tiny sliver of US ag in terms of acres, but really punching above its weight in the grocery store. So sales of organic products in the US topped 62 billion in 2020. 90% of those sales were food, so 10% were non-food items. But back to this punching above its weight. So of every dollar spent on fruits and vegetables in the United States, 15 cents of that dollar were actually spent on organic fruits and vegetables. And yeah, it's because they cost more, but it's also people tend to buy, when they have a choice, they often tend to buy fresh fruits and vegetables that are organic. So again, organic, only 1% of the acres, but 15% of total US retail produce market. Similarly, not quite as dramatic, but in organic dairy and eggs makes up about 8% of the US market, while only occupying, again, that small acreage.
Thanks, Mac. That is so interesting to think about. It's not just a price difference between the two. It's a consumer choice difference. So thank you so much. Follow-up question to you, Mac, though, actually. What have you seen in the kind of demand space for non-GMO and organic seed? Maybe this is a chance to talk about how non-GMO factors into this as well.
Yeah, so our organic seed business continues to grow every year. Honestly, it's not growing fast as organic agriculture is overall. And the reason for that is because the organic standards set by the USDA allow organic farmers to plant conventional untreated seed. And many organic farmers still choose to do that. For example, we estimate that there's around 500,000 acres of organic corn in the US, and roughly 250,000 of those acres are probably planted with conventional untreated seed that organic farmers are purchasing from traditional ag suppliers. On the non-GMO side, I'm a little less experienced here. Certainly overall demand for non-GMO products continues to grow. It's a smaller marketplace than the organic marketplace overall, and it does include a lot of non-food items. Non-GMO seed, at least for my company, and maybe different for others, but non-GMO seed has largely been driven by economics. So many farmers have chosen to plant conventional / non-GMO corn or soybean seed because it's been significantly cheaper than traded seed. When commodity prices are high, farmers often make the choice to go with those traits. There is, of course, a demand for purely non-GMO and non-GMO project verified grains to use in the non-GMO food chain, but that's largely a closed loop system, not entirely, but most of those suppliers of non-GMO verified grains for consumer products are contracting all their production, and it's a pretty small marketplace in my opinion.
Thank you so much, Mac. Jon, I want to bounce the next question over to you. How do you think organic and GMOs or gene editing techniques fit into the sustainability conversation? I mean, we talked a little bit about the soil health discussion, but what do you think is the future for a greener world and how we can kind of tame climate disruptions?
Yeah, I think there's two issues here. There's public perception, and then there's the other issue, which is science. From a science point of view, organic agriculture offers no real benefits. It offers no real health benefits. It does preserve the soil, like I said a little bit. But from a sustainability point of view, carbon release, organic is actually far inferior to conventional agriculture. For instance, you can use GMO crops and you don't have to till your soil. When you till the soil, which is very common in organic agriculture, you're releasing carbon. Also, there's anywhere from a 20 to a 40% yield lag when you use organic farming. So there's this huge misconception by the public that they're actually doing something good from an environmental point of view by buying organic food. So it's really an advertising advantage and a marketing advantage, and people have a right to buy whatever they want. But if the focus is on sustainability, choices are much more nuanced and much more complex. Fortunately, the new wave of GMO and gene-edited crops are almost all focused on sustainability-related issues. How do you grow crops that are nutritionally enhanced? How do you grow crops that are resistant to climate change issues like drought or too much moisture? How do you grow crops that are resistant to diseases? These are not kinds of things you can get in organic agriculture. They're just, the technology is not allowed in that because it means altering the genes in some form, but it's really the centerpiece of biotechnology-focused agriculture. So I think the future of agriculture will almost be all biotechnology-focused. The question is, when will the organic movement decide that its focus is on sustainability rather than, I'll be honest, it's almost like a cult, a 19th century cult focusing on soil preservation, but without the real advantages to the public. It's just higher priced and people are buying perception. So I'm hoping that the organic movement can change. Just a few weeks ago, the organic movement rejected proposals by some organic proponents to include vertical farming as organic, which is clearly a major sustainability benefit, but it was rejected by the mainstream organic community because it didn't involve soil. And that's a 19th century definition of what organic should be. So if organics can move into the 21st century and embrace sustainability rather than 150-year-old precepts of what agriculture should be, I think there could be a real commingling of the best kinds of technologies that both offer.
Awesome. Thanks, John. We actually have an audience question right now from Ashley. John, I'm going to direct this question to you first, but Mac, if you have any input on it, I'd love to hear it.
Sure.
So John, what role do you feel like seeing labels like that non-GMO project plays into the customer divide on what they purchase?
Yeah, I'm not so opposed to the current proposal by the government to proactively label things that are genetically engineered. I think it's meaningless because I don't think it changes the content. It's a perception label, but it's on the scale of things, it's somewhat harmless. I think that it's really illegal what the non-GMO project does. It's an absence label. It's basically saying that things are not GMO, which implies that there's a benefit for it when it's actually literally just a marketing gimmick. And it's done by a private company whose avowed interest, you can read it on their webpage, is to destroy the GM movement. They are an activist advocacy organization. In their precepts on their webpage, their goal is to end GM products. So they're really not following any FDA regulations. If the FDA was not so intimidated by the organic movement, they would actually follow their own precepts and ban the non-GMO label. I think the GE label is relatively harmless and innocuous, but it's saying something that really has no impact on the product itself. It's about how things are processed, not the product itself. And the US regulations have traditionally been focused on what the end product is, not the process in getting there.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, John. Mac, did you have anything else you wanted to add for our lovely audience member?
I think I'll pass on that question. I certainly agree that labels do make a difference to customers, or to potential customers in a supermarket setting. So I agree with that statement. John and I are going to disagree about some things here, as you might expect. But I agree with him on some things. I do think sometimes consumer perceptions are different than reality. I do agree that the carbon benefits to no-till farming potentially are real, right? And so there are organic farmers that are learning how to do no-till. I'll point that out. I'll also point, he said something that the health benefits are just not there. And I think if you focus exclusively on human health benefits, you can find studies that will prove that. But I'd point out that there are health benefits to the rest of the environment that are really important to organic consumers. And so for some organic consumers, it's really important that the seed that gets used on the ground isn't treated with neonicotinoids or other insecticides, which are linked with pollinator declines worldwide. And so that's a real health benefit, not a human health benefit, but an environmental health benefit that organic consumers perceive and I would argue is real, and they're willing to pay more for. So I'll stop there and see if you have another question.
Thanks so much, Mac. We actually only have time for about one more, but I am going to let Mac answer the last question. And John, if you have anything you'd like to talk about afterwards, please add on. But I just wanted to ask maybe you both if you think there is room for both organic and GMO in our food space. What do you see as the future for non-GMO and organic, Mac?
Yeah, so I'll try to be brief so John has time to talk as well. I certainly believe there will continue to be multiple streams of agriculture. And I absolutely believe that gene editing has brought and will continue to bring significant advances to conventional ag. How those advances impact farmers and consumers beyond my powers of prediction. I'm not really going to make a prediction about the future of non-GMO food or non-GMO products, but I absolutely believe that consumer demand for organic food will continue to grow because dedicated organic consumers believe that organic crop production reduces the use of pesticides and is better for soil health, water quality, and ultimately climate change mitigation through carbon capture. Well, that's an arguable point, and John probably will take me to task there.
Well, thanks, Mac. Well, John, I'll ask you the same question. Do you think there's room for both organic and GMO in our food space?
I absolutely do, but I'll get to that in one sec. I just want to make one point. I think the role of pesticide use by organic farmers is wildly understated. The countries in the world that have the most pesticide use per acre are all in Europe that don't use GMOs, the worst being France and Belgium. And in fact, a study just came out that organic copper sulfate, which is the single most widely used pesticide in Europe, and is carcinogenic to humans and also carcinogenic, a killer to insects, is in a majority of children in France. And Europe wanted to ban it, but it was blocked by organic activists. So I think we got to get past these simplistic issues. I think both of us share that. The issue should be sustainability. I really wish the organic industry would put on its big boy pants and change its focus away from literally precepts that are 50, 75 years old and say, we are going to focus on organics. Let's get there any way we can and use all the tools in the toolbox. I don't think that's going to happen because it's an ingrained ideology. But I do think that these two systems are simultaneously evolving to focus more and more on the bigger issues of how we grow food with less impact on the planet, and also attempting to address health issues as well. So that those trends are pointing up in both directions.
Thank you so much to you both. Well, like I said, that's probably about all the time we have today. But just a reminder, if you missed a portion of this live, we'll be putting a recording up on seedworld.com, and we'll be having an article come out to dive in a little bit more to this topic. And if you like this topic, don't worry, we're going to have more discussions like this for the future. In the future, next week, we are going to hear Sonia Begeman talk about updates from Europe when we talk about the Farm to Fork program. She's going to help us learn what it means for international trade and what it's going to take to achieve the EU's new sustainability goals. And we're just going to keep talking about this into the future. So we hope to see you all next week. And again, thank you so much to all three of our panelists for joining us, and have a wonderful week, everyone.